Discover 3 spine-chilling and sinister summer night horror stories that will haunt you forever. Sarah held her breath, clutching the keys to her new home while the late summer heat wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. She had escaped. After nearly drowning in the suffocating depths of an abusive relationship, she thought she had found safety among the white picket fences and cheerful neighbors of her suburban enclave. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the shadows lengthened, twisting into monstrous shapes lurking around her house. Was it just her imagination? That evening, as the cicadas whirred outside, Sarah wanted to believe that normalcy was within reach. She imagined the idyllic life she had pictured, her 2 kids, Alex and Lily, laughing in the backyard. But the calm between the twilight and dusk shattered when she noticed the old swing set in the yard began to sway back and forth empty. A chill skittered up her spine. A lone breeze? Certainly, it couldn't be anything else. Mom! Look! Alex suddenly piped up from the table where he was drawing. I made pictures of Mr. Thompson. Sarah turned slowly, unease creeping into her consciousness. Mr. Thompson was the neighbor everyone admired, his benevolence practically radiating from him as he gardened. That's great, honey, she said, masking her worry with a smile. But as the days dragged on, a thickening dread settled in. Shadows flitted past her window at dusk, and Sarah could swear she heard giggles echoing down the hall. Her kids were asleep. Could it be the wind? Or was it something else? The nights turned into a haze of panic. Eerie laughter bounced off the stark walls, and her sleep-deprived mind conjured terrifying images of unseen eyes watching. Kelly, her coworker at the diner, noticed her fatigue and whispered, "You okay? Heard a couple of strange things, last week." Neighborhood stories, unsettling. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Amidst her routine living, an oppressive weight shadowed her days. One night, while closing the diner, unease prickled at the back of her neck. As she reached home, her heart raced, finding the front door ajar. Panic surged through her. Was someone inside? Alex? Lily? She shouted, but only the silence greeted her back, thick and heavy like a fog. She rushed through the dim, once cozy rooms, every shadow morphing into a menacing shape. Then she remembered those drawings Alex had made, sketches that now felt sinister. The neighbor's friendly facade evaporated. Through the window, she caught sight of Mr. Thompson at the edge of his garden, his baleful grin illuminated by the glint of a flashlight reflecting off the glass. With what looked like a drawing of her children clutched in his hands, her stomach turned. They were not alone. The danger might be closer than she ever suspected. What did those figures mean? She stood frozen, her heart racing, questioning everything she thought she had known. The air felt heavier the next morning, pressing down on Sarah's chest as she brewed her coffee. Images of Mr. Thompson's unsettling grin haunted her thoughts, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. She tried to push it aside, blaming it on the remnants of nightmares and days spent in fear. But in her gut, she knew something was deeply wrong. Mom! Can we go to the park today? Alex's voice sliced through her reverie, innocent and bright. She smiled weakly, trying to mask her anxiety. Sure, honey. Just let me finish up here. As she poured the mugs, she caught a glimpse of movement outside. Her heart lurched as she turned to the window. The swing set was still, but a shadow darted away behind the trees. It was probably just a trick of the light, she told herself, but a gnawing doubt settled into her bones. After breakfast, Sarah took the kids to the park, determined to distract herself. Sunshine washed over them but felt suffocating. The laughter of her children rang in the air, a sound that seemed to echo within her own dread. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. A shiver raced down her spine as she scanned the park. People played around them, but in the corner of her eye, she swore she saw Mr. Thompson, lurking just beyond the tree line. "Mom, look!" Lily's excitement jolted her. "I made a new friend." Sarah turned quickly to see a little girl standing close, her tattered dress hanging loosely. The girl smiled, but there was something off about her, as if the childhood innocence had long left those sunken eyes. Sarah's stomach twisted. "Oh, that's nice," she said, forcing a smile. "Wanna play?" The girl asked, her voice a whisper that sent chills down Sarah's spine. "Not right now," she replied quickly. They weren't here to socialize. She pulled her children back toward the playground. Alex looked at her, puzzled. "Why is she so weird, Mom?" "Let us just focus on you guys," Sarah said, but unease swirled in her gut. When they returned home, night fell quickly, an inky darkness swallowing the streets. She put the kids to bed, their small forms cocooned in safety, or so she hoped. Alone in the living room, Sarah tried to watch TV, but the shadows flickered against the walls, twisting and warping as if alive. Then she heard it, laughter, sweet and haunting. It echoed from the children's room. "Alex! Lily!" she shouted, rushing down the hallway, her heart pounding in her ears. The door creaked as she flung it open. Darkness enveloped the room, but the dim glow of the nightlight revealed nothing amiss. The kids slept soundly, but the laughter faded, leaving only an eerie silence. Her breathing quickened, panic crawling up her throat. In the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of movement by the window. She turned slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. And there was Mr. Thompson, standing just outside with that same sickening grin. The flashlight in his hand flickered ominously, illuminating their faces with a ghastly light. He lifted something slowly. Was it a drawing? Each heartbeat echoed in her ears as she realized it bore a resemblance to her children. She bolted towards the door, but before she could reach it, the lights flickered and died. Total darkness engulfed her, and the laughter returned, filling her with terror. "Mommy, where are you?" came Alex's small voice from the bedroom, clenching her heart tight. In that moment, Sarah knew they were truly not alone, and whatever had been watching them had taken a more ominous turn. What did they want? What did Alex and Lily really know? She hesitated, gripped by fear, pondering the worst was yet to come. As she gripped the doorknob, whispering a faint prayer, she now faced the full, terrifying truth: the battle for her children's safety was just beginning. The silence stretched, wrapping around Sarah like a heavy blanket. She could feel her pulse racing, thumping louder against her ribcage. Each breath felt like a whisper in the dark, and she fought the urge to scream as she turned the doorknob, the metallic cold biting into her palm. Fumbling in the pitch black, she scanned the room for any hint of light, desperately grasping at the reality that her kids were just a few feet away. Then, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the room with a pale glow, but immediately, a chill settled in the air. Once comforting, the soft illumination now cast strange shadows, making the walls look like they were closing in. "Alex? Lily?" she called out again, her voice shaking. The room remained still, eerily quiet, then came the laughter again, light and fleeting, yet tinged with something sinister. It had emerged from the children's closet, a sound that sent ice through her veins. Without thinking, she dashed towards it, the air thick with dread. "Get away from there!" she shouted, her fear morphing into fury. She flung the closet door open and stumbled back. Nothing. Only the silhouettes of forgotten toys and the fidgeting hangers swinging slightly. But she could still hear it, the laughter, that dreadful laughter. Suddenly, she felt them, small hands clasping her legs. Her heart twisted as she looked down. Her children stared up at her, their eyes wide but empty, mirroring that strange girl from the park. "Mommy, we were just playing." Alex's voice was innocent, but the way he said it sent shivers down her spine. Playing? Where? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. With her. They pointed to the closet, and dread pooled in her stomach again. What do you mean? She pressed, struggling to keep her voice steady. The kids exchanged glances, a silent conversation she couldn't grasp. That strange girl had somehow infiltrated their home. Had she been here the whole time, hiding? Watching? The closet door creaked again, and her stomach dropped. She could see something moving, a shifting shadow inside, and a cold sweat broke out on her forehead. Get away from there. Sarah urged, pulling her children back, but it was too late. The closet door swung wide open, and there she stood, the girl from the park. Her hair hung in tangled strands across her face, but her grin was wider now, more unsettling. The nightlight flickered once more, casting grotesque shapes on the walls. Don't you want to play? She sang sweetly, the melody twisting in the oppressive silence. Go away. Sarah shouted, instinctively stepping in front of her children. The girl tilted her head, and for a moment, Sarah thought she saw something flash behind her eyes, a darkness that shouldn't exist in a child. The girl took a small step forward, and suddenly the laughter erupted from her mouth again, louder this time, as if inviting more specters into the room. It echoed off the walls, and the shadows danced like they were alive, creeping closer. Everything within Sarah screamed that fear was imprisoning her, wrapping her tighter than a vice. Her heart raced, nearly drowning out the girl's laughter as it morphed into a chorus, voices joining in, calling from places beyond her comprehension. Mommy, let her play. Alex's soft voice broke through the chaos, and Sarah turned sharply. His innocence was like a knife twisting in her gut. No. No. We don't play with strangers. Before she could grasp the gravity of her words, the lights flickered again, plunging the room back into darkness. She reached for her children, but their small hands slipped from her grasp as the laughter erupted again, fierce and hungry this time, filling her with terror. When light returned, the girl was gone, but the air felt heavier. The kids stood still, expressions haunting. Mommy, she wants to come play, Lily whispered, and every shred of Sarah's composure shattered at those words. What do you mean? But as she looked for answers in their eyes, she found only fear, the same fear that echoed within her. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a single, crumpled paper lying on the floor where the girl had stood. Sarah's heart stopped as she knelt to pick it up, realizing with dread that it was a drawing and it was her children, their faces twisted into hellish smiles, their eyes hollowed like the girl's. Before she could gather her thoughts, a shiver ran through the house. The whispers returned, mingling with the laughter, echoing around her. This time it felt different. This time they were closer, more insistent. Mommy, let us go play, echoed in her ears. Suddenly, the closet door swung shut on its own with a resounding thud. What had she just unleashed? The hunt for safety had turned into the mark of a terrifying presence. And as darkness closed in again, Sarah realized the worst was yet to come. The air thickened, wrapping around Sarah like a suffocating shroud. She squeezed the crumpled drawing in her fist, its edges digging into her palm. The uncanny smiles burned in her mind, a reflection of her worst fears. She breathed in deeply, trembling. Alex, Lily, hold my hands, she urged, her voice trembling as she reached for them. They shuffled close, their small fingers slipping into hers. There was a chill in the air, a sensation of something someone watches closely from the shadows. Mommy, she wants to play, Alex repeated softly, an innocent smile cutting across his face, yet it was a mask for something darker. No, no. Sarah bolted away from the closet, dragging her children with her into the farthest corner of the room. We don't play with her, understand? The light flickered again, a stutter that sent her heart racing. She fought the urge to scream as shadows twisted, their forms undulating like living beings. Mommy, please, Lily pressed, her voice small. She's fun. She's our friend. Your friend? Sarah's views of her children felt like sand slipping through her fingers. This isn't a game. But the kids had already begun to giggle, their laughter echoing in a horrifying harmony. Her children were giggling while she stood terrified, helpless to the sinister shift unfolding. She pulled them tighter, trying to shield them, but the laughter morphed, deepening into something more malicious. Let us play hide and seek. The girl's voice chimed in the darkness, playful yet laden with menace. Stop it. A rising voice echoed in her head. Stop, just stop. An eerie breeze swept through the room, and the lights plunged into darkness yet again. Now, it felt like something pressed against her chest, choking her air. Panic surged through her as she clutched her kids close, a protective shield against the malevolent shadow spreading ever closer. Mommy? The whisper came from Lily. Where is she? Stay close. Sarah shouted, her voice cracking. She fought to keep her own fear at bay and turned toward the closet, aiming daggers at its closed door. If you're a ghost, I'll send you packing. Just as she spoke, the door creaked open, slowly, deliberately. The girl peered out, her eyes glowing, catching the faint light. That grin was frightening, twisting her features, and Sarah staggered back as if struck. Let us play. She sang again, swirling around in her tattered dress, each spin sending shivers down Sarah's spine. Get back. Sarah screamed, feeling the walls close in farther. But then she felt a tugging at her leg. Alex and Lily had released their grip and were inching toward the opening. No, not just inching. They were drawn, like moths to a flame. Come on. Mommy, let us go play. Alex cried, his voice insistent, pleading. Alex. Lily. She lunged forward, desperate, disoriented, grabbing for them. But they danced away, ignoring her cries. The girl spread her arms wide, beckoning, her laughter blending with the echoes of her children. Sarah's heart raced as she saw the shadows elongate, curl, and twist around her kids, encasing them in a darkness that seemed to seep from the girl herself. No! She screamed, lunging forward. The distance felt insurmountable, the space between them extending like an abyss. Each breath felt heavy and labored. Mommy, help! Came a fading cry from Lily, the sound swallowed by the shadows. Just then, the lights burst back to life. Sarah scanned frantically for her children. They were gone. No sign of them, except their shoes, sitting innocently on the floor. What have you done? Her voice trembled, filled with dread as she stared at the girl, who now stood before her, eyes gleaming with triumph. Mommy, let us play, the girl taunted again, inches from Sarah's face. Fear racked her body, freezing her in place, while an anguished whisper curled in the back of her mind. What if she never saw her children again? Dead silence fell, stretching ominously like an elastic band ready to snap. Sarah felt the cold sweat line her forehead, her breath hitching painfully. The girl's lips curled. It's your turn to play, Mommy. The shadows poured from the corners, shrouding her in darkness as she realized something horrifying. The game had just begun. And she was the prize. As the laughter swelled into a deafening crescendo, Sarah finally understood. Sometimes, the monsters lurking in closets aren't from fairy tales. Sometimes, they're the ones who look just like her. In that moment, she knew, she had to find them before it was too late. But how does one navigate a game that has no end? The shadows swallowed Sarah whole, an icy grip tightening around her throat. The girl stepped closer, her laughter ringing in Sarah's ears like a twisted symphony. She fought against the dark, searching for the flicker of hope that flickered like the dying light bulb overhead. As darkness encroached, a sudden blinding flash illuminated the edges of the room. For a brief moment, she could see the twisted shapes dancing on the walls. They had her children. Where are you? She shrieked, heart thrumming like a war drum in her chest, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her eyes darted everywhere, searching for any sign of Alex and Lily. But the girl only giggled, a sound that scraped against Sarah's sanity. "They're hiding," the girl said, spinning in a slow circle as shadows swirled around her. "And the game is just beginning. Tell me where they are." Sarah's voice cracked, desperation clawing at her insides. She plunged forward, adrenaline fueling her movements, ready to tackle the girl if necessary. "Find them." The girl's eyes glimmered with malice, her smile stretching impossibly wide. "But beware, they may not be alone." Suddenly, the closet door slammed shut behind Sarah, causing her to freeze in place. The room dimmed, leaving only the haunting creaks of the floorboards beneath her feet. Panic surged within her as she slammed her fists against the door, desperate to get out. They were losing precious time. She had to think, had to act. "Think, Sarah. You can't let them win," she whispered to herself, her breath short and shallow. Her mind raced, each second feeling like an eternity. The picture of her children's faces, their smiles, their laughter spurred her forward. But which way to go? Turning to her right, a thought struck her like a bolt of lightning. The old hallway. The house was a maze, but she remembered what lay at the end. The attic. Dark and musty, it had always been an unsettling place, but it was also where she kept the family mementos, where she felt safest during childhood storms. The girl's laughter echoed again, wrapping around her, dampening her resolve. Time's ticking. You don't want to lose. Steeling herself, Sarah dashed toward the hallway, racing through the darkness, the shadows clinging to her like a coat that wouldn't fall away. She spotted the staircase leading up, the wooden railing splintered and warped. With every step, she felt the weight of the air, pushing down on her. "Alex. Lily." She called, her voice tremoring through the silence. No response. Only the creeping realization that she might be too late. Every time her foot struck the stairs, visions of her children flashed before her eyes, playing, laughing, innocent and unaware of the danger creeping into their lives. She pressed on, summoning whatever strength she had left as she reached the attic door. It stood ajar, darkness spilling out like ink. Heart racing, she pushed it open. Inside, it was thick with dust and the scent of mildew and eerily quiet. Boxes lay strewn about, some half opened, revealing forgotten toys and clothes. She stepped inside cautiously, every creak of the floor an unwelcome sound. "Alex?" She called again, her voice smaller now, barely audible over the thundering beat of her heart. And then she heard it, a soft whimper. "Mommy, help!" Panic seized her, and she turned sharply, scanning the room. She spotted a figure huddled behind a trunk. Lily. Relief flooded through her, mixed with dread. "I'm coming." But just as she took a step forward, a blast of icy wind whipped through the attic, extinguishing the light and filling the space with darkness. "Not so fast," the girl's voice echoed, swirling around her, drowning out all else. "They're not the only ones who need saving." Sarah's heart sank. What did that mean? She fought to regain control as the wind howled, and shadows enveloped her once more. "Mommy!" came the distant cry again, pulling at her heart. But the weight of the shadows was too great. She felt herself being dragged backward, pulled away from the sound that echoed from the darkness. "Choose wisely before it's too late." With a final scream of determination, Sarah lunged toward the sound of her children. But was she stepping into salvation or sealing their doom? As she plunged deeper into the darkness, the ominous whisper of the girl lingered in her ears, leaving a chilling question that hung in the air, thick with despair. Was it too late to save them both? The cold darkness enveloped Sarah like a thick fog, suffocating and oppressive. She blinked, trying to adjust, but the world around her remained pitch black. Panic surged again, and she pressed forward, her palms grazing the rough walls of the attic in her frantic search. Every shadow felt alive, whispering her name, mocking her. "Lily!" She cried out again, desperation twisting her voice. The air was thick, weighed down by a suffocating silence that only heightened her fear. Another soft whimper broke through the stillness. Her heart leapt. Was it truly Lily? "Mommy, please." The sound curled around Sarah, leading her deeper into the dark, but doubt gnawed at her resolve. What if this was a trap? What if the girl's game was pulling her away when she should be escaping? Nevertheless, she could not abandon hope. With shaky breaths, she took another step. The wind howled once more, a bitter gust that toyed with her hair and clothes, like icy fingers probing her skin. She hesitated, fighting against the chill that filled her with dread. "Choose wisely." That sinister voice echoed again, pulsating with cruel delight, wrenching her heart tighter. "Who are you?" Sarah shouted into the void. "What do you want?" But only laughter answered her, a chorus of shrill giggles blending into the chilling breeze. Shadows swirled around, coiling like serpents, and just when she thought she could handle it, something shifted behind her. She turned, adrenaline coursing anew as she squinted into the depths of the attic. The blackness seemed to move, shapes morphing from shadows, skittering just beyond the edge of her sight. She felt a presence, something more than the girl, watching, waiting. "Mommy." The voice, muffled and weak, was so close. Summoning her fading strength, Sarah dashed toward the sound. It had to be Lily. The trunk. Was Lily behind the trunk? She could feel her heartbeat in her throat, pulsing with fear, echoing back at her in the cold air. Suddenly, a jarring crash erupted, and her heart dropped. The trunk slammed shut as if something or someone had lunged at her, throwing itself in her path. "Not yet." The girl's voice rang out, throwing ice water on Sarah's determination. "The game isn't over." Stepping back, Sarah felt the floorboards creak beneath her, like a warning about to be fulfilled. Shadows darted in her periphery, and she felt their twisting fingers creeping closer, enclosing her like a predator closing in on prey. "Lily!" she screamed, squinting into the abyss. The laughter intensified, mocking her, delighting in her terror. Digging deep, she fought back against the icy fingers of despair that clutched at her. "Stay away from her!" she shouted, the rawness of her voice taking her by surprise. An eerie silence fell, broken only by the whispered, "Choose." Sarah took a shaky breath. What kind of twisted choice was this? She could dive into that darkness, face whatever awaited her, or turn back where the whispers had promised freedom. But would she really be free if she left her child behind? With torn resolve, Sarah searched again for Lily, eyes wide, straining against the shadows for any sign. Her heart thundered in her ears as she remembered the warmth of her daughter's smile. Then came the whisper, so soft, yet so clear, "Mommy, help me." The darkness flickered as if responding. She could feel the sadness seeping into her bones, pressing against her heart. Was it too late? Was this just a cruel trick, another game brought forth by the little monster? Just as her mind raced, the shadows began to ripple and swirl. And in the blink of an eye, they shaped into something that made her scream, a face, contorted, leering at her from the void. "Choose wisely." Shivers ran down Sarah's spine as she realized the truth. Behind that face lay her worst fear. The shadows weren't just trapping her. They were buying time. Time for something far worse to emerge. "Mommy!" A new scream, distant and terrified, cut through the chaos. Sarah prepared herself for the fight ahead, but the shadows seemed to thicken, wrapping more tightly around her as she gasped for breath. "Mommy, help!" With mounting dread, she realized the whispered plea was no longer just in her head. The answer to her choice loomed, but would it bring salvation or unleash her worst nightmares? The grip of darkness tightened, and Sarah felt herself spiraling down into an abyss of choices and consequences. But as she stood on the precipice of that dark decision, a flicker of light sparked in the distance, dim and faint, like a promise of hope or another trap, and then everything went black. The darkness engulfed Sarah completely, disorienting her as she sank into its depths. Silence took over as the whispers faded, leaving only the sound of her own ragged breaths. The flicker of light, so tantalizing and distant, seemed to dance just beyond reach, teasing her with its glow. She stumbled forward, instinct urging her to chase that glimmer, yet every step felt heavier, as if the shadows themselves were pulling her back. "Lily," she gasped, desperation clawing at her throat. The word echoed, swallowed by the void, and for a moment, there was nothing but her heartbeat, loud and frantic in her ears. She forced herself to focus on the light. It couldn't be a mirage, it felt real, warm, a stark contrast to the chill that threatened to consume her, but with that warmth came another sound, a low, guttural growl that resonated deep in the darkness. It vibrated through the floorboards beneath her, sending ripples of dread surging through her body. Her heart raced as she spun around, the urge to flee overwhelming. "Lily!" She screamed again, voice cracking, hoping against hope that her daughter would hear her. The shadows receded slightly, forming a small path that led toward the flickering light. She hesitated, aware that urgency was a double-edged sword. The voice of the little girl was joined by another, older voice, rich with menace. "You should know better than to wander alone. Stay back." Sarah screamed, shaking, fists clenched. The shadows seemed to laugh at her bravery, swirling menacingly before solidifying into grotesque shapes lurking at the corners of her vision. The light flickered again, battling against the growing darkness, illuminating faces twisted in horror and malice, watching her, judging her. She forced her legs to move, each footstep feeling like a leap into a chasm of despair. The growl deepened, resonating with a visceral primal fear. Just as she reached the edge of the light, she caught a glimpse of Lily's face, but it twisted into a mask of terror, eyes wide and pleading. "Mommy, please don't." "What?" The world spun around her, and Sarah staggered back, panic surging once more. "What do you mean?" "Choose." The shadows hissed in unison, each syllable echoing off the walls, a suffocating chant that crescendoed into a cacophony of despair. The ground beneath her seemed to quake, destabilizing her resolve. The light pulsed in response, revealing a flickering pathway lined with portraits of wretched faces, each one crying out in silent agony. She clenched her teeth, nausea twisting in her gut. What were they? Were they other lost souls? The weight of choices felt unbearable. Another growl, closer this time, vibrated through the air, sending her heart racing. "If you wish to save her," the malevolent voice taunted, slicing through the noise in her mind. "You must sacrifice something precious. Stay away from my daughter," she cried, stepping towards the light. With newfound determination, she raised her hands, feeling the warmth seep into her skin, a flicker of hope, a shield against the specters lurking in the edges of her vision. But the shadows laughed, and the growl deepened into a hiss. "Then you will be the sacrifice." Sarah's blood ran cold as she felt the floor shift beneath her feet. The edges of the shadows solidified, revealing grotesque, gnarled hands reaching out for her, pulling her back into the abyss. "Mommy! Help!" The scream cut through her, clear and sharp, igniting a fire of instinctual rage within her. She fought against the grasping darkness, lunging towards the light. Just as she felt the edges of hope slip away, she saw it, the shimmer of a hidden key, glinting just beyond the veil of darkness. Was this the answer? With one last push, Sarah grasped for the light, reaching for guilt, despair, and desperation. Would she dare? In that heartbeat, the choice lay bare before her. And then, a deafening silence descended, a moment suspended in time as darkness and light collided. What would she choose? The light surged, enveloping Sarah in its warm embrace just as the shadows lunged forward. A piercing scream ripped through the cacophony, blending with the shadows' hissing. She could feel the darkness clawing at her, but the light pulled her in, as if embracing her like a long-lost friend. In that instant, the key shimmered brighter. An instinct drove her to reach for it, to grasp it tightly. Her fingers touched the cool metal, and a rush of energy electrified her. It surged up her arm, flooding her with a new sense of purpose. But as she pulled her hand back, the shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned. "Sarah!" the twisted voice echoed, taunting her as it slithered through the air. "You think a simple trinket can save you? You need to give more than that, more than yourself." "No. I want tea." Her voice trembled, but she steadied it, raising the key as if it were a weapon. The growl subsided, replaced by a whisper of uncertainty that seemed to echo in her mind. As the darkness faltered, she dashed into the light, crossing an invisible threshold. The moment she broke free, a warmth enveloped her, and for a second, all seemed clear. But the horrifying visions of the tortured faces remained burned into her memory, a reminder of the cost of that choice. "Mommy." It was Lily's voice again, faint yet desperate. In the distance, Sarah could sense movement, shadows darting as they conspired. The scene before her flickered, the edges of reality wavering like a faulty television signal. "Where are you?" she gasped, her heart pounding violently against her ribcage. She could see now, the figures whispering in cruel mockery as they watched her. Were they souls she could save? Or were they waiting to pull her back down? "You'll never find her," another voice chimed in, as eerie laughter spread through the air. Chill crept along Sarah's spine. "No. I must protect her." The thought surged, cutting through the haze of panic. If she couldn't find Lily, they both were doomed. With renewed determination, Sarah turned her focus back to the flickering light ahead, where hope danced like a candle in the darkness. Each step took her deeper into the labyrinth of light, where the shadows clawed at the edges but couldn't quite reach her. "Choose," the shadows echoed, their voices a haunting symphony of torment. "You've made your choice, now face the consequences." Consequences. The word shrouded her in doubt. Every move forward felt heavy. Were they just leading her further into despair? Or was there a chance? "Mommy. Help me." Lily's voice broke through again, a pure call from the depths. In that moment, dread surged within her. "I will save you." The ground beneath her shuddered violently, and the flickering light wavered. Blinded momentarily by uncertainty, she pressed her hands against her head, fists clenched. She felt as if the very fabric of the world was tearing apart, as if she were at the center of an existential storm. And there it was again, the shimmer of the key, glowing with a profound urgency. Something instinctive told her that the key could unlock more than just a pathway. It held the power to choose again. Choose, the shadows hissed, the darkness swirling ominously around her. Would she sacrifice everything for her daughter? Or was the cost too high? As the answer hung in the air, a deafening roar erupted, shaking the ground, shaking her very core. The shadows twisted into a monstrous form, looming ever closer. "Make your choice or lose her forever." And then, everything snapped into chaos, darkness and light colliding fervently around her. What had she truly chosen? Would it be enough? The ground bucked beneath her feet as the twisted form of shadows lunged forward, a writhing mass of despair and malice. Sarah stumbled back, heart racing, the key trembling in her grip. It pulsed with energy, as if sensing the terror suffocating her reality. She could scarcely breathe, terror choking her thoughts. Backpedaling, she strained to understand the swirling darkness. The shadows formed agonized faces, filling her mind with memories, echoes of laughter, fleeting moments with Lily that now felt like distant dreams. The laughter turned into screams, drowning out her resolve. "Lily!" she shouted, the words spiraling into the darkness. No answer came, only the mocking laughter that pierced her. Each moment soaked with dread deepened her desperation. "Mommy!" It rang out again, louder this time, shattered and filled with fear. "Hold on. I'm coming." Sarah felt the weight of her promise as she turned again toward the light. It flickered, a fragile beacon amidst the chaos. Each step toward it felt like defiance against the darkness that threatened her sanity. Yet uncertainty gnawed at her. Would the light lead her to her daughter, or was it merely a mirage, a cruel display by the shadows? "Your choices have consequences, dear Sarah. They always do." The voice slithered into her mind like an icy serpent, wrapping around her heart. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the rhythmic thud against her palm, the steady beat of hope fighting against despair, but as she neared the light, it dimmed, flickering like a flame caught in the wind. The shadows shrieked, howling in frustration. You can't escape what you are. Just accept it. The key reacted with a wild intensity, a searing heat radiating from it. She could almost hear it calling her, urging her to remember what it truly meant. Was it merely a piece of metal, or a gateway? Closing her eyes for a brief moment, she recalled the stories of her mother, whispered late at night about choices and powers hidden in everyday things. The key was forged from more than steel, it was hope. Her hope, Lily's hope. Gritting her teeth, she made a choice. With a newfound ferocity, she thrust the key into the flickering light, expecting it to either melt away or burst forth with brilliance. Instead, an explosion of energy rippled through her. The chaos paused, shadows retreating momentarily, their cries morphing into whispers. Lily! She sprinted forward, pushing through the thinning darkness, hoping against hope that the key would open a passage to her daughter. As she moved deeper, the surrounding shadows began to shift, forming a tunnel of despair. Images flashed past her, visions of anguished faces, people she no longer recognized, eyes pleading for release. The air turned thick and suffocating, regret and loss clung heavily like a fog. Don't look away. A voice shouted from the depths of the tunnel. She hesitated. Each face bore a reminder of choices made, of paths untraveled. There were parents. There were friends. Each face whispered, "Help us know." She shook her head violently and pushed on, the promise of Lily driving her forward. I will find her. I will save her. But as the echoes of the faces faded, another laugh broke through a low, sickening chuckle. Every choice has its price, Sarah, you'll see. Suddenly, the light flickered in a desperate burst, illuminating a figure caught in the shadows at the tunnel's end. Mommy! Please, help me. The chilling voice was unmistakably Lily's, raw with fear, and panic surged through Sarah anew. Her heart thundered as she reached for the figure, but as she did, the darkness lunged again, grasping for her. Do you dare proceed? The darkness hissed, shifting ominously. She faltered, fear clawing at her throat. The key glinted in her hand, pulsing with energy, and she realized it might not just unlock a door, it could alter fate itself. Could she bear the weight of choice once more? As the darkness closed in, she took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. Whatever it takes. And in that moment, as the shadows lunged, Sarah's fate hung teetering on the brink. What would the next choice cost her? The world spun around Sarah as darkness whipped like a cyclone, swirling aggressively, threatening to tear her from the faint light ahead. Her heart raced, a relentless drumbeat echoing her desperation. Lily, she screamed, the sound swallowed by the menacing laughter that surrounded her. Each shadow twisted toward her, reaching with clawed fingers, eager to drag her down, but she wouldn't allow it. She couldn't. Her daughters depended on her. Drawing a deep breath that felt like she was inhaling fire, she clutched the key tightly, feeling its warmth beat against her palm, urging her forward. I will find you. She yelled, battling back against the chaos swirling around her. The corridor of darkness felt infinite, but so did her love for her children. It burned brighter than the shadows that clawed at her. Mommy! Lily's voice wavered again, rising like a beacon to guide her through the storm. It was a sound that ignited her spirit. She charged ahead, fueled by the urgency to protect her child. Each step felt like a challenge against the fabric of the night, but she was relentless, sweeping aside doubt like cobwebs. The tunnel twisted, morphing into a swirling vortex of despair and malice, but the flicker of light grew nearer. The silhouette of her daughter was stark against the encroaching shadows, swaying like a fragile candle in the wind. Mommy! Please! The urgency in Lily's voice pulled her closer. Hold on, Lily. I'm coming. Sarah's voice pierced the darkness. She reached out, arms stretching, fingertips grazing, shouldering a warmth that ignited hope in her chest. Suddenly, the shadows roared with fury, surging forward, desperate to reclaim her. You think you can escape? You think you can save her? The sinister whispers echoed, a whirlwind of terror. Every choice has its price. Ignoring their taunts, Sarah tightened her grip on the key, its surface smooth and cold against her trembling fingers. There was power within her, a mother's love, fierce and unyielding. She wouldn't negotiate against the dark, she would obliterate it. With a scream that sliced through the darkness, she thrust the key into the very heart of light, expecting an explosion, a banishment. What she felt, instead, was a rush of energy, a blinding radiance that erupted from the key, illuminating the chamber and scattering the shadows into wisps of fright. Lily was in front of her, eyes wide, filled with fear, but there was hope behind them. Mommy? Lily. The relief that flooded through her was potent, the kind of love that could divide the night from day. Come on. As Sarah lunged toward her daughter, she felt the shadows retreat, crumbling under the power of their bond, unraveling like a tapestry of nightmares. The darkness shrieked, scorned by the light, fading as if it never existed. In the face of pure love, you have no hold. The laughter of the girl faded, replaced with echoes of despair, twisting away into the black. Mercy seeped into the corners of the room, washing over Sarah and Lily like a crash of warm light. As they reunited, the shadows ebbed away, retreating in surprised silence. You're safe now, Sarah whispered, setting her hands firmly on Lily's shoulders. But then came Alex's voice, thin and tremulous. Mama? Alex. The piercing fear in her heart returned, a newly formed void threatening to swallow her whole. Where was he? Stay close to your sister. And then, in the distance, she saw him. Alone and shivering, Alex stood at the edge of the fading gloom, lost but illuminated by the bright radiance emanating from Sarah and Lily. Without hesitation, she pulled her children to her side, the warmth of their presence flaming in her chest. Alex, come. She called, her voice trembling with urgency. He staggered toward them, fear evident in his wide eyes. Mommy, I thought I lost you. You can't lose me, she replied, tears flowing freely now. I'll never leave you. The three of them, joined at last, formed a fortress against fear, a bond unbreakable. With a final surge around them, the darkness twisted, limping back as if evicted, fading into realms unknown. Laughter erupted from the shadows, a mad cacophony of the girl and others daring them to return, but they would not. As Sarah held her children tightly against her, she felt the remnants of fear begin to evaporate. They were free together, awash in a new dawn. The first light of morning spilled through the windows, warming their faces, a promise of hope and safety. Let us get out of here, she murmured, relief flooding her system as they clasped hands, a tether against the night. They stepped out of their darkened home, into the promise of a new beginning. The past would always remain a shadow, but together they had severed its grip. They were safe again, and nothing could take that from them. But as they walked, heads held high, that sinister laughter echoed faintly in the distance, a reminder lingering like a ghost, whispering that shadows never truly vanished. They merely waited in quiet corners ready to play again, and as the sun rose, glinting off the dew-laden grass, Sarah held her children close, fully aware that every new day held its own kind of darkness. But they would face it together. United. And she swore, that would always be enough. The end now. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this haunting finale. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans like you know the importance.